We can see your screen.
Thanks, Joseph. Yeah, I'm about to ask you that.
Yep, you're good to go. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Yeah, good evening. Thanks, Joseph. Good evening, everyone. And I'm happy to see that almost like 17 plus participants are there still. It's almost the last session, and it's going to be the wind-up session for this one day India's Cloud Security Summit thing. And first thing, like I wanted to thank. This is the third year I'm just contributing in this India Cloud Security Summit session. And thanks for the organizers, Jasad, Vignesh, everybody. I don't want to call every names, but thank you all for this great way of organizing things. And I would like to take a moment to thank the sponsors. Because of them, we are able to connect and share and discuss about the new cloud security topics. And it's a one-day virtual event. It's a day-long event. You're all there from the morning and from the welcome note to now, and you would have been learned or heard a lot of security-related topics and a few hands-on session as well. Mainly, this is the three tracks. It's focused on Azure security and compliance, M365 security and compliance, and Power Platform and endpoint security. So with that, let me start my session. And I'll like split into a two thing, like almost 20 minutes. I'll just take up a session. I'll just talk about that topic. And the last 15 minutes, I'll show you in Azure portal how this is being configured. And from morning, like you would have been heard, DevOps security, and then multi-cloud support. So many jargons you would have been heard. And we are going to see that in Azure Data Factory, how that has been incorporated here. And then managed identity, which is Microsoft Intra based. So all this like end to end as a simple use case we are going to see in this session. So if you have any questions, you just put it in the chat. We can see it in the last, or you have my handle as well. Like you can connect me offline. And before getting into the topic, right? Like first, I just wanted to build up a scenario or the starting point. I want to set up the context. So basically, uh, this Azure Data Factory and the security thing, right? Whoever belongs to the data engineering or data analyst, or the people working on the DevOps expert or DevOps side person who's setting up the pipelines for machine learning or data engineering, etc. It will be like very useful for them and for the organizations, right? This is the third era of data engineering and data related things. The first era we started with on-prem SQL and a small SSIS package like that. And then later Power BI, lot of things came in the data engineering track. And this is the third track where we are in AI, ML, data engineering, which is like ruling the current decade, I could say, and it's going to be a future as well. So that's why like we took this topic and where like many companies are moving ahead with the data engineering, right? So of course, all the customers, all the organization has, is it like I'm moving all my data into cloud? Are secured? This is the first question they ask. I'm going to share my databases, data informations, because you have to process and give them the insights to them, right? Is it like secure? I have a lot of confidential information, official information, strictly confidential informations. I'm exposing my table or database to you guys over the public internet because the cloud systems are in the internet based, right? Is it secure? Is my data is secure? That's the first question every organization, every company, if you're implementing a project into some organization, the healthcare or any domain, that's the first question will come. My data is my data is secure. And the second thing to implement this one, right? As the last session he covered CIO, security office, CIO office, CSO. So every IT company they started having a team security officer. You would have been heard the last Jasit and speaker was discussing it, right? Security officer, separate team, enterprise architect team, build up a security team as well, who will assess all the security controls over any solutions, whatever you are planning to implement, right? They will look for the security breaches because that's what the first welcome note I've seen. Like every 15% it's keep increasing, right? That's a data breach. So organization has that. when you are like proposing or implementing a solution, first thing, as a solution architect, we should be ensure that security controls and whatever the cloud security controls and country specific controls, HIPAA, you would have been a lot of terms, HIPAA, everything been applied to our solutions. Are you following that? So if we are using Azure, right? Like how Azure is upgrading with all the security controls, right? We can leverage, and we have already. So in this session, right, we are going to see what is already there. We don't need to worry about it. We need to properly architect it. If you're architecting your solution properly, everything's are there. Understand the business requirement and apply accordingly the security controls. This is what we are going to see. What is there for Azure Data Factory? Not only for Azure Data Factory, it applies to the data engineering pipelines. Okay, so mainly like securing the data while in the pipelines. In the data pipelines are one while the transformation is happening from source A to source B, when the data is moving or the data is stored for some transformation or some processing, is my data is secure. That's the three area we are going to discuss. Okay, to set up a context, right? A team, you can take like organization, pharma or healthcare organizations. They have recently launched a product which is like Azure AI and ML based, using a data. Of course, the data will be there in the backend. The trap a product. So it's been in the pilot mode, beta mode. They have released that component to the internal employees. So I'm just setting up the context. Recently they released the project a week before, and that product reached the customers, their employees. For example, it's not been rolled out to the market until now. It's a beta. It's launched to their internal employees. It like it a product is reached everybody or everyone, and they were leveraging. They're using example like Chat GPT using Azure OpenAI service. It's been optimized for their organizational content. It's not the public one. You can search all their internal content using the prompts. So like that, a product they have received. They launched it, and when they the person, right, there's a team who's like a data engineering, data analyst, and Azure. It's a technical team and a data engineering team together. Four people I have taken as an example here. They are seeing this a very peak in the traffic, and consistently people are using that product. So management is also watching it. Yeah, the beta, it's been released to 100 plus people. Everyone was like searching and using the product. And the next thing, management comes to the data engineering team and the technical team. We need to like that's what the second person causes. Like if management has us to build a like a like we are impressed with the product results, we need a recommendation engine. Like you can recommend to the person because everybody's using it, so they wanted to like sell the things, right? Like so automatically we see the insights, how best we can recommend to them based on the pattern, user preference, demographics, which country, what are the things they were using in on the product, and usage analytics. This is what the next task the team is getting it. So the product is going to be in public in a 6 month, but it's in a beta, very good feedback. And the team got the additional task, like they wanted to build a recommendation things also on top of the existing product. This is where like our discussion starts. And and the data engineering team as like the last era, like the data scientists, they are planning to build a model based on the existing data, and then visualization to the management up to the team. So how that visualization, like how that usage metrics, analytics metrics are like been like increasing, keep increasing, how best they are impacting the product. So that's the thing, the discussion is going on. So what's the model we are going to build, what are the visualization tool we are going to use it in the Power BI, are you going to be Power BI? So those discussions are going on. And the person, right, who is going to architect the solution, so literally she's having like a thought, like it has a millions of records. I need to refer not only that cloud services whatever we have used it, I need to refer the on-prem data as well. On-prem data I cannot use it as it is. I have to like transform a little bit because it may have a user information. I'm just saying like either country information, where they belong to, what role they are playing in that organization. So that one. So they have to consume on-premises data, which is not there in the cloud due to the security reasons. And couple of like services they are already leveraging in the cloud. So this is the scenario. They have mixed and match, hybrid, like on-prem and cloud. So, and I'm planning to write a offline ETL job. So I'll read the analytics, app insight analytics, and the service logs and everything, and then user information, demographic information is everything. I need to do a ETL. That's the way the solution she's thinking about it. So ultimate, of course, like they are coming up with, let's store all the information into Azure Data Lake. Let's use a Spark engine and use a data bricks to process everything. So that's the solution she's coming up with. But the other person, literally, they're suggesting, why are you like, we have to use all the components and do a manual thing? We have a Azure Data Factory. So Azure Data Factory, it's the best solution for this scenario. You have a lot of components, moving components on-prem and cloud, and you have to write a job. So I'm just my recommendation will be a Azure Data Factory. Guys, you need to just look into it what it is. And this scenario, literally, like you can use Azure Data Factory. That's a recommendation, he says. Then the team is curious, like what is it Azure Data Factory? How that is going to help this situation? And the main question it comes up with, about our internal security audit team, getting the solution approved by them, going over all the security checklist is a tedious job. It's not that easy because I'm connecting on-prem and cloud. In the earlier solution, what she was thinking is doing everything in the on-prem, pushing the final output into cloud. So there is no, that's like very confidence. Everything, all the informations are there in on-prem. So that's they were discussing about it, and our agenda also starts with that. And the team, he plans to explain how what is Azure Data and how secured it is, and what are the where and all like you can ensure it has been architected securely. Okay, guys, this is the background. With that, he's starting with the context starts with Azure Data Factory and the security. So this is not a session, like we are not going to discuss completely how to build the data components, how the data flows from on-prem to cloud, etc. But I just want to give a little introduction to Azure Data Factory, because without knowing that, we won't be able to understand the security consideration part. Okay, so first thing, what is Azure Data Factory? Azure Data Factory, and then the next is what are the use cases the Azure Data Factory can solve? Because already we have a data warehouse, data lake, so many things, data lake, data bricks, so many you would have been heard of data engineering components and Spark, Insights, HD Insights, lot of things. So what is this Azure Data Factory, and what are the use cases it will solve? Main components, because we should know the components so that we can see how securely we can connect those components. Okay, first let's see what is ADF and the components and use cases. Okay, Azure Data Factory, you can consider this as like an orchestration tool. It's like a backbone, which is I would say like the ETL jobs, right? For example, if you want to write an ETL job, you need to write a job and schedule it either in a batch or incremental scheduled way. You have to write a job so that if there are any data changes in the source one has to move to source two. It's not just moving alone, right? You may be transforming the data, like EDA, extracting the data, and you will analyze the data and then load the data for the target thing. Uh, we can take an example like in this cases, they wanted to build a multimedia recommendation engine. So they will get a lot of like user informations, like user one, what are the components he is looking into, he is accessing it, user two, user three, based on the demographic or gender based. So what the engine does, it has to get all the information, and it needs to find a pattern. For example, user approximately, it will guess the range of user or age of user. If, for example, Netflix or YouTube and all, right, easily it can get your age and your genre of like what kind of movies or videos you are watching it, and automatically it start recommends, right? The similar way, it's processing a lot of trillions of data, gigabytes of data in the backend. So it has to like user to user, this user like movie, for example, if you're watching movie X, and what will be your taste and what you are going to watch next. So all the user to user to item to item, a lot of recommendation it has to do in the backend. So it has to process the data and the pattern to recommend something to us, right? So so all this data movements, right, it's happening on a scheduled way. But in the case of Azure Data Factory, it's a skeleton. It's now, as soon as you create a data factory, it's not going to cost to you because it's just a framework. The ETL job, it's like orchestration. It's going to orchestrate all the components, moving components. For example, if data source, for example, we are having a SQL database in the on-prem, it changes something, that changes automatically trigger. The triggering is handled by ADF. For example, we can take like this. The triggering is handled by ADF, and you no need to write any code. If you are a data engineering background or DevOps background, anybody, right? You don't need to write any component. It is like a simply a navigational intelligence screen. You can go step by step, show and tell more. If you know how to like set up a pipeline, easily you can do it. So it's very easy to use. There is no code for ETL. Otherwise, like you have to depend on the developers to do something. If there is any code fixing those issues, so it was like developer dependent one earlier. So completely a code-free ETL service, ETL as a service. I can say like either an orchestration tool or a code-free ETL as a service. That's the Azure Data Factory. It's a fully managed because it's fully managed by Azure. Earlier, like you have to have a lot of exception tools. You need to see where it is broken, why it is not running. You have to go back and read the log to see why it failed. You have to handle the scenario like that. So it's completely fully managed. Health, security, everything has been managed. Failovers, everything been managed by Azure. And serverless is what I mean. There's no cost. Once that some changes are happening in the pipeline, that time Azure Data Factory instance will pick up everything, it'll run, and then if there is no change, it will go. So serverless, there is no server dedicated computer, so anything is allocated for that. And it's a integration solution where you can do end-to-end pipeline, right? So ingestion, you can do the data ingestion. So data can come to the data lake, and you can process the data or metadata, and you can prepare for your target system, and you can transform the data in a scale. Everything managed by Azure Data Factory. So it's based on this one, like it's easy to use, very cost effective, pay as you go, as the compute is the price for us. So as much as the data load moves around and the process around, it's going to be the cost for us. And automatically this it scales up automatically. And there are like 90 plus built-in connections. You no need to write a code to connect with Salesforce or in a SQL or any Oracle, any data connectors, right? You don't need to write any code. Already the inbuilt connectors are available. It's similar like a DevOps thing, right? DevOps you can use a lot of if you want to integrate a code review tool or Selenium, you have all the components ready. So automatically you'll be Sonar Cloud. You'll other connections will be available. You'll be integrating it the similar way. There are 90 plus built-in connectors to consume the data, and the orchestration monitor is going to do that. And of course every Azure services is now having the intelligence, right? So AI based scope they are coming it up. And Azure Data Factory, the latest Microsoft Fabric also included Data Factory into it, which is completely AI based because Copilot is coming up. So Microsoft is completely industry like focusing on the AI. And even industry, everybody is talking about AI ML. So even data, so we have a SaaS product, Microsoft Fabric, which is like a complete analysis service that is also including the data factory now to get the insights quickly as a SaaS. Okay, so these are all the component data factory has. We can ingest the data, and there is a control flow. We'll see this what is control flow and data flow, and the scheduling is happening. Of course, the monitoring is happening here. Okay, so use cases, right? What are all the use cases this data in ADF can handle? One is like if you have use cases of creating a data pipelines, or you want to move a data, if you want to transformation, if you want to do some transformation data. The reason is you will have a multiple data sources, right? It can be a one learning portal, or something will come up from the databases, some will come from the people like employee services. So everything will be in a different format. It can be a JSON, it will be in Excel, it will have a lot of metadata. So for example, if you are reading all these components and pushing this information into either a Azure Cognitive Search Service or a Google, right? You have to process all this input data and align that into the target metadata, however the search engine needs, right? You have to fit this formats into those. metadata format. You have to process it and you have to map the property, associate the property, and there'll be a lot of issues while mapping the attributes, right? So that you need to handle. So those can be easily done by the ADF now. And migrating, if you want to migrate any existing, because the last and before this were like full like SSIS packages, right? So usually you can migrate that on-prem SSIS package to Azure in a single click. That they have given that connector and the data flow. If you want to back up anything from here and there, automatically if you want to make the, if there is for example something changes in your data source one, you want to make the data source to reflect it, the data flow, you can use it. It's like very like a synchronous one immediately. As soon as the data changes in the source one, source two will reflect it, like the failover SQL we had earlier. And operational data integrations, if you want to maintain it, and you can integrate with any other Azure services. So you can integrate for example blob data lake wherever, like SQL warehouse. So you can integrate the datas. It can flow through all your Azure services. And of course, data orchestration. It can control the flow of the data based on the triggers we are writing it. And analytics easily, like you can, it's what like Microsoft Fabric is going to have this analytics, right? Easily, like you can get the gist of what's going on the product. Monitoring management, of course, Azure supports it. And if you want to monitor and manage the thing, manage the services, you have like a inbuilt support. Security and compliance is what like we are going to discuss in detail. And if you want to ingest the data into data warehouse and data wrangling and data cleaning as well, we can do. So if you have this kinds of scenario, ADF is the best bet. Okay, this is the main component for the ADF. The main reason, like we are discussing about it, these are all the places where are all the places like we can implement the security, right? First, triggers. It's like either it can be on demand schedule or something like that. The trigger, which triggers that flow to happen. Pipelines. This is where the activity is being defined. So every activity one, two, three, like that, you can define the activities. Data sets, of course, data sources will have a data sets which is going to be processed or used. Linked services, this is a wonderful thing, which is linking data factory point one to point two. Point like it can be a JSON, it will be a SQL table. If you are creating a linked service, if you're associating the mapping property, this transformation happens automatically. It's systematically it happens. You don't need to write any code. And then data flow happens. Integration runtime, this is a very important thing. Integration runtime, it's similar like our DevOps thing, right? You can have the agent machine. You can use Azure hosted agent, or you can use self hosted agent. Similarly, this integration runtime where this compute happen, this is what going to cost us. Integration runtime, it can be a Azure integration runtime, or you can have your own VM dedicated to that. You can have your own self-hosted integration runtime. So two things are supported. Now the third one, Azure supports SSIS runtime as well. So they're like a recent one. Three integration runtimes we have. And this is what the cost involves. Integration runtime is where we are investing the cost. We are paying the cost. Okay. The high level, right? There will be a relational data. It can be a non-relational data process happening in the and movement happening through ADF, and any BI tool or any advanced analytics or any language can leverage the processed data. So ADF is taking care of it. And for the discussed scenario, right, the person they were saying they wanted to build a recommendation engine. It's like a quick solution. What they can do it like they can have a data source in any of these databases. It can be they can design it, right? I mean, we are not sure what is the data sources. It can be a SQL or a Azure SQL or data stable or Cosmo it, DB, anything it can be. So our linked services can get the data to the orchestration, means our data factory. We can store it in the blob and we can do all the process. And then we can push that information to the process to transform information into a SQL data warehouse or anything, whatever they're coming up, SQL table or whatever they're coming up with, the solution that can be like pushed into the analysis service. And finally, they can build a Power BI report or a recommendation engine, whatever they wanted out of it, they can build it. This is like a quick solution. Fine. Hope like it gave you what is ADF, where and all we can use Azure Data Factory, because my intention is like by end of this session, you'll be knowing what is Azure Data Factory. It is just an orchestration tool where like a data engineering team can build any data flow or control flow, the use cases, whatever like we discussed. And Azure Data Factory will take care of it. It's like orchestration master who will control all the like yeah, he will like have a he will synchronize and harmonize the team to play like similar way. And the next one, security consideration, because we said it is like built-in built-in screens. You can like click and you can create any data factory, right? So automatically we are not doing any coding, we are not providing our security measures, etc. How this is going to like consider the security and more. Any organizations, right, as soon as you prepare a solution, plan a solutions, you have to walk them through with security team, and they will like go over component by components how this is going to talk to that, what's the permission. So we need to explain them, explain them. That's the reason is like data breach, they are the responsible persons for the answering, right? So they over all the security checklist. This discussion like this topic will help you to prepare and plan it. So what is there, what and all you can consider, how best you can propose your solutions. And that's the first thing, data pipelines, data in transit and data in rest. And network level also, you have a control, you have a control of playing around with security. And of course Azure policy integration, you can define the policy. If you are missing anything, for example a data engineer, he may not be knowing, he would have been used hard coded username and password or something like you used in the connection stream plain password, right? The Azure policy integration, if you have defined no one should use like a hard coded user connection string or something like that, automatically they will get a message. And of course it's not only just a alert or something, right? If they say fix it, it's going to show them where it needs to be fixed, what's the solution, what has to be done. If they agree and accept the solution, it's going to replace it. So that easy, yeah, that easy, that Azure policy integration with ADF. And the last one, as we are using like Azure AD, right? This has RBAC roles as well. So you can define Azure, you can define this role-based access control in Azure Data Factory as well. It literally supports for all the moving components. So this is the three area. The first one, like will data pipeline. So now we have our Azure Factory ready. Assume that Azure Factory is ready, and our data pipelines also there. So first top scenario is data is there in the data pipeline. Okay, our data is moving. For example, it is there in the Azure Blob. It's Azure Blob or in a SQL like that. Data is in the data pipeline. So in the data pipeline, what are the security considerations or measures we can do? The first one, authentication. Of course, the backbone is Azure AD. We know like all the Azure services backbone authentication and authorization framework is Azure AD. It's in the backend, so it supports authentication supports like Windows or basic and service principle. But still, the recommended thing is managed identity. Managed identity, you will. I'm thinking like you're all familiar with that. It's like a Microsoft Entra based. So we are allowing Microsoft to manage our identity. Like if you are like main advantages like the password rotations and security, everything, automatically the system Azure is going to take ownership of it. We don't need to like remember everything. So manage identity. And for example, you can it's ADF, right? It's not necessarily that for one project you should have only one ADF like that. You just understand the requirement. If you want to build, if you want to like split that into a two or three ADF to do two or three like different process, right? You can split it because it's not going to cost. ADF is not going to cost us. So easily you can architect with two or three ADF based on your project needs. Generally, it's like one factory is enough to handle everything. If you have like a other scenario, complex scenario, you can plan it. Okay, so each and every ADF is supports access control. Okay, and the recommendation is like ADF or the resources used in the ADF have it in the same subscription and resource group. It's a best recommendation. Keep it in that way. Subscription and the resource group should be the same for that ADF and all the components used in the Azure Data Factory. And Recommendation is like for every components, like sources, we have like a lot of components, right? Data source or a SQL or a Databricks engine. So whatever the Azure sources you are using it, go with manage identity. It's a very unique for ADF. Whenever the ADF Azure Data Factory instance creates, it will have its unique identity to it. And and the recommendation is always try to build the data password free data pipelines. When you are building a data pipeline, try to do a password free data pipelines. But if you are this is like a two-way, right? One, completely your resources can be in the cloud, or else like you will be connecting your on-prem resources to your cloud resources. So for example, if your on-prem resources SQL server doesn't supports like a SQL authentication, you have a no option. You have to take an alternate route. But if possible, use the password free data pipeline. That means authentication mechanism for your data store supports MSI. So all Microsoft Azure services supports it. So all the data, if your data store supports MSI authentication, then use MSI authentication. That's the recommendation for the security. Next, if no, then use a key vault, like to store the store credentials and reference. The main reason is, right, if you are storing your credential in a key vault, in a way it is also a password free, passwordless authentication, because we will be for example, we are creating a, in this example, linked services are responsible to connect point A and point B. It will go and talk to your Azure key vault and get the key. The key will be shared to the data source, right? So there is passwordless, you're not passing anything. Automatically the key in the runtime, that too in the runtime, the key will be passed to your data source. So completely it is like a passwordless. And for example, like if you want to read the data from blob container, you can the manage identity can be a, we can, this is like an example for the RBAC. We can define the reader role to that ADF managed identity. It just goes and reads the blob container. It doesn't do anything else more than that. And even for example, if you have a SQL database, you can control database wise, table wise. So you have that level of like security. And the MSI, it's like very important to leverage the Microsoft intra MS managed identity, right? It's like a zero management. Credential management is completely system assigned, and then there is no need to rotate. And, I still remember like whenever the key credential is like token is expired, our services will stop working, and then immediately we have to go to the Azure portal and see that client uh, expired, the token is expired. We have to renew, and then the token has to be updated in all the services whatever we have used it. If you missed one place, it's like it will be broken. We need to go back and see the architecture where and all we have used. We go back and rotate it properly, so that is completely handled automatically. So there is no overhead, and it's very improved security because we are not storing credentials in anywhere. And I remember in the first welcome note, right? He was saying like a API, endpoint security. Many companies are, they're not like focusing on the endpoint security, so that Microsoft came up with the Defender supports like for the, even the Copilot, even the endpoints, etc. So the improved security automatically, we are also leveraging it, right? So there's, we are not storing credentials within the application, and it is not accessible because it's if you are going with system system based managed identity, there is no, it's not accessible. Even if it is like you're saying user managed, so you will be giving a key to that, but you're not managing it well, so automatically the rotations are taken place. It's very easy authentication because all the resources in the Azure are identified easily. So already it is there in Azure AD, all your resources and then applications, the authentication happens seamless, and you can assign the RBAC role to the manage identity. And cost, there is no additional cost for leveraging managed identity. It's like a very easy setup. Either you can say system based. So Microsoft Entra, if you like, if you're interested more on managed identity, you just read it. It's like a wonderful component to use it if you're not using it already. Okay, the benefits is like this: maintain. We don't need to maintain credentials, and then we can use the managed identity to authenticate any resource that supports Microsoft Entra authentication. So all the resources are now supporting the Entra authentication. So you just need to check that option. For system assign MSA, get rid of the managing credentials. So we don't have access to secrets, so we are getting over of it. And this doesn't have any cost. So this is a recommendation for authentication for ADF or for any Azure resources, right? If there's a managed identities, everything is asset, so leverage that managed identity. So you are secured. And the next part is like this is a other connection linked services with connections, right? So connections endpoints been handled with this authentication. We are assuming it in this case we are using managed identity. We are secured in that spot. And the next one, the data, whatever the data, it's like flowing, right? From the source one to source two. For example, if I'm pausing a sales record, so I'll be giving a sales region or for example, the branch ID information is everything, right? Many of the data in Microsoft has a intelligence like, for example, if it is a credential, it's a secure string. Automatically, it stores a secure. If not, like you can mention couple of like attributes. This one is like very sensitive to me, encrypt it. Generally like IDs, employee IDs are many SSL, like and in India like example Aadhaar card or something like that, right? So that automatically by the attribute it knows it's very secure, it has to be encrypted, it does. If you want to specifically secure like encrypt some metadata, you can do that. There's a simple attribute like customer here, like customer managed key, like you can say what all the attribute needs to be managed by is encrypted. You can do that. We will see that in the screen. So in the rest, metadata in the rest automatically it's like say secured. Data source supports the secure. Whatever the data sources you're using it supports it. And even in the transit, right? Transit the metadata are encrypted. So this, if you want to like additionally add, you can do that. And the third one, a credential management. For example, so if you want to manage the credentials, right? So first thing is like initially as we said, like if the data SQL database, it supports like SQL authentication. Means like try to store that key key in the Azure key vault and reference it during the ADF running time. But for example, if you're using like if it's storing in ADF services, right, automatically encrypted. So if you're using in a Azure key vault, for example, here only it will have a key name, right? That's it. It will have a key name. You won't be able to read what it is. And ADF, whatever it stores, it's encrypted way. And the thing is, whatever been stored in the ADF, that's only for applies to that specific instance. So ADF once stored credentials, right? You cannot use it in the next another ADF's instance. So it's like the scope is limited to that ADF instance. Okay. The next, this is on the data in the moment. The data in transit and rest. In transit, data supports HTTPS. Like the transit means the data is like it's in the on the move, right? Automatically, like it supports data store supports HTTPS, especially for the point A to point B, the data source one to data source two. The channel is like encrypted. Everything is supports TLS 1.2. For example, if your data source is not supporting 1.2, and then ADF also, you have an alternate method of degrading it, look mapping with that TLS version. But 99% TLS 1.2, it's like that's a security check. Every organization has it. It's been a TLS 1.2 protocol. That means the MAC layer, whatever the MAC layer used for the data transmission, data movements, right? It is completely dedicated to that and secured. 802.11 algorithm been used to dedicate that channel for that source to target. So the secure channel is happening through HTTPS or TLS 1.2. Data in rest, of course, this is like the ADF adheres the whatever the data. It's like whatever data source has it, right? It supports it. No matter what it supports, it's like ADF is also adheres the same. For example, if you are using a blob storage or table storage, that is like a storage service encrypted. So ADF like uses as it is. It decrypts it like automatically it understands that encryption what is been what's available for that specific Azure Data Service, or it can be Amazon Salesforce, or whatever the data source, right? So it understands that and it transcribes the data as it is to the target. So data in the rest, no need to worry. Like data sources things, we are automatically adhering that. Example: Synapses has TD, Azure SQL database supports transparent data encryption. This even Azure Synapses, Azure Data Lake encryption automatically it does in the data in the accounts. Actually, whenever you are storing, encryption automatically happens there. ADF supports it. And blob and table, Azure service encryption. Amazon S3 it supports both client and server encryptions, even the data at rest. Amazon Shift cluster encryption. Salesforce, it's like a platform level shield encryptions. It supports for all the files, attachments, and custom fields. It supports the security. And the next one, RBAC roles. Like RBAC roles, it actually like a managed identity. It's like we are based on the Azure AD, so we can define our custom role based access. ADF has like ADF contributors and readers. If you want to like define your own roles, you can do it. For example, a person he wants to just monitor the pipeline. If something happens to the pipeline, you need to refresh or restart like that. So that specific team should be like handle only the pipelines. You can do the data factory operator, and you can tell him like he won't be able to change anything on the pipeline settings, pipeline or linked services or data source, anything. He will be just monitoring the pipeline. If there is any issues, he can restart the pipeline, just refreshing it. So understand the business requirement and see the role, identify the roles, and give a minimal access to them. For example, if a person wants to like read the data, just give the reader, add them to the reader. So you can define the roles
I believe we have two
and
minutes left.
okay. And the other one in the network level, so ADF whenever it connects to that on offshore like on-prem cloud and on-prem hybrid mode, right? So automatically ADF, even though it is not in that virtual network, it builds the managed virtual network. Even the on-prem is like it can have a private endpoint. The managed virtual network, the virtual network, right? From the on-prem, the private endpoint can talk to the control panel of the cloud services. That happens in the Microsoft backbone. It's not accessible through the internet. It's like happening through the backend, through the Microsoft backbone. But virtual network automatically it will be created and demolished as soon as the transaction over. So this is like a on-prem network, and it has a data which has to be transformed to that ADF factory which is running in the cloud. This is where like our ADF services, Azure runtime. I need to run it up fast actually. So the private link created in the control panel, which will talk to this on-prem data through the backend. So, but this is there in the internet. This is in the on-prem thing. This is way like a network also. Like you can configure it. And then the last one is Azure policy. So you can define the policy automatically. It will apply to all your resources. Okay, and then thank you. Like let me quickly create and show you. I don't think so. I'll be like able to. Let me like go to the Azure portal and create a Azure Data Factory. So it's going to launch you the Azure Data Factory. I'll take a minute to show this. Okay, this is the Data Factory, right? When you are creating it, we quickly walk you through this. Oh, it's time up. So creating the same resource group, and there is option to save all this configuration into the Git. Automatically, whenever you're creating a data factory, this information will be stored in the Git. Even though data factory is demolished, like you can import from the Git, it will run automatically. And the networking, you can see manage private network, public endpoint, and private endpoint. Okay, so encryption, either you can use Microsoft encryption or you can use CMK, customer managed key. So the options, whatever we have seen in the presentation, like you can go over while creating the data factory, you can set everything here and then create the data factory. Sorry, guys, it's already time up, right? Thank you all. Any questions? I thought of showing this in a 15 minutes,
Uh,
but yeah.
it's okay, no problem, Medley. If anybody has questions,
Anyone
please
have
go ahead and
questions?
ask now.
Any questions?
Nope. All right.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Matthew, for your session. Take care.
Thank you all.